I'd like now to turn to a man who clearly is one of the most knowledgeable about investment in the regions and the characteristics that regional administrations have or do not have, which can tend to attract investment. And that's Bruno Balvanera, who's the head of regional development for the EBRD, which I believe may be the largest foreign investor in Russia. Bruno.
Thank you, Andrew. And indeed, I will say the EBRD is the largest investor in Russia. In 22 years, we have invested 22 billion euros, which is a huge figure if you think about it. It's 700 projects. And currently, for the last couple of years, including this year, we are investing every year about 2.9 billion euros in about 70 projects. That's about a bit more than a project a week. For those who think that working with EBRD is very difficult, well, we close one of these very difficult transactions every week, a bit more than that. Our activity in the regions is extremely important. We have worked directly in 55 out of the 83 regions of Russia. 75% of our volume goes to the regions. And I would say that we do not select the region where we go, because what we do is that we follow the investor. And as it has been repeated several times today, the investor comes here either in the case of Kinross because gold is here, but the large majority of the companies like Novartis and many others, they come because the market is here. And the market, yes, there is market in Moscow, 22 million people with all the aggregate metropolitan area, but the rest of the 142 million people live in the regions, and this is why to go to the regions, to be close to the market is so important. I would say a little bit about what we do. About 40% of what we do is in industries. About 30% of what we do is in banks, and we use banks as a vehicle to go to medium-sized companies. And about 30% of what we do is infrastructure, municipal or transport, and energy, meaning electricity or natural resources. I also would like to share with you which are the regions where we have worked the most, not because we don't want to work in the others, but I think we all somehow converge to the same regions that are top in the agenda for everybody, and these are Nizhny Novgorod, Kaluga, Rostov, Vologda, Perm, Tatarstan, Krasnoyarsk, Novosibirsk, and Sverdlovsk. It is also true that foreign investors are not as aggressive to going to the regions as we are. And they tend to be shyer, they tend to be more closer to the European market. And it's normal. They are getting knowledge to the region, but we have been here for 20 years. We have 7 offices throughout the country, all the way from St. Petersburg to Vladivostok. And we finance both foreign and domestic investment. I would like also to share with you a figure that may surprise you. Only 27% of what we do is with foreign investors. The rest is with local. So we are mainly financing local company and local infrastructure. Now, we all come here because of the domestic market. The domestic market is growing 4% per year, but is growing at this rate mainly because of the social expenditures of the government that are on the back of good oil price. If this does not happen anymore, the market will not be as attractive as we are used to. And I think that if we look also at the rate of investment into industrial or infrastructure activities, this is well behind what other big markets, BRIC markets, or other development markets are doing. So I think it is very important for the authorities and for the investors, they have seen that, to do more investment to try to create a more stable long-term market. Now, let me talk about the big topic today, investment and investment climate. And I'm going to probably bring a couple of big elephants that have been in the room and that are probably a little bit difficult to talk about. The first one is, normally when we talk about investment climate, we tend to think attracting foreign investment. I think to retain domestic investment is far more important than to attract foreign investment. Foreign investors that are coming here are reinvesting their profits, while we see that all what is in the back of the outflows is the outflows of the domestic investors. So I think the agenda should move a little bit more towards keeping domestic investors into the country. The second big elephant I would like to talk about is moving from short-term to long-term view in all the aspects from the investment. And here I'm talking both about investments of the government in infrastructure that is so much needed, but also about developing the domestic companies, the local companies. The last big elephant that I would like to talk about is, up to now, and when we see foreign investors coming to Russia, a big piece of the package that they are offered to go from one region to another is subsidies. The reality, and the foreign investors have told me that, they are not interested in subsidies. Of course, if these subsidies are offered, they will not decline them, but what they want is infrastructure. What they want is labor. What they want is a stable and reliable environment, a one-stop shop that will help them to comply with all these rules, all the many papers that are so much needed. So I think that at the federal level, there's also a little bit of thought to do whether these subsidies that are costing so much to the budget are really so much needed, or whether more implementation, more investing in teams, more investment in people, more in facilitating, could first attract more investment, and second, be less onerous. The job in front, we all know what it is. The president knows it very clear. He announced it the very first day he was in office. We need to create 25 million jobs. We need to improve the ranking for the World Bank of many notches. And it is not to go from 120 to 115. Actually, there's no difference between these two rankings, but is to improve it to ranking 50 by 2015 and ranking 20 by 2018. Productivity needs to be increased. Nobody's talking about productivity. And if we want to keep this market, it needs to be on the back of improving productivity, 1.5 times. The share of high-tech, and high-tech, I would fully agree with what Luna Mosky said. Investing in high-tech, in industry, in aviation, in metals, in automotive, is not less important than in electronics. Actually, it could be even more important. Russia is an industrial country. Russia has inherited big factories that they just need to be renovated. What is our contribution to the investment climate? Well, the same as many other agencies, consultants, and organizations, AmCham, Ernst Young, and so many others, we have been constantly asked by the government, by the Ministry of Economic Development, by Mr. Koval, his predecessor, Mr. Belyakov, what do they need to do? And I think this is excellent. They are listening. We are providing them with comments. The EBRD has been performing what we call the BIPS, which is a business environment survey. We do that with the World Bank. We have done that 4 times since 1999 to 2008. After 2008, the budget of the World Bank disappeared, but thanks to the generosity of VEB and the support of the Ministry of Economic Development, we carried out a 5th exercise of BIPS in Russia that we have just shared the results with our counterparties in Russia, and therefore I'm not allowed to give you the full report. We are still cleaning with them. I will give you some highlights. The first big highlight, well, we did, just to put you in context, this time we went to 37 out of the 83 regions of Russia. In each of these 37, we interviewed between 100 to 150 companies. We applied 4,000 interviews, and we were asking all the companies which are the key obstacles they have in doing business. I will share with you what are the key areas, but the big picture over these last 5 times that we have done is that in the first several surveys, the first 3, there were big improvements. The 2008 unfortunately coincides with the crisis, so therefore is not that meaningful. And the last one shows some improvements, but to be honest, those improvements have been only marginal since the 3rd, the 4th went a little bit back, I said, because of the crisis, and now we have a bit of marginal results. Now, what are the key concerns that they are? And I'm sure you will not be surprised, because these are the same concerns we have had for so many years. And all in all, the first 3 key limitations that have been reported, one is corruption, the second one is access to finance, and the third one is skills. Now, analyzing this group of answers region by region, it comes to us as a very big surprise that the regions that we think the most developed, and I won't mention those, are the ones with the highest concern in corruption. And we try to analyze that because it didn't seem to be logic that those that are more advanced seems to be where there is a higher complaint on corruption. And the conclusion that we have come to is that the more advanced the region is, the more demanding it is, and the less people are prepared to give up. And on the contrary, the most difficult regions, corruption sometimes seems to be not a problem, but a solution to bureaucracy. So I think it's a very interesting element. We will soon release the full report of this. I'm sure that all of you will be very interested in showing. Another important element of this is that we measure also how innovative was each of the companies. And again, the more innovative the company is, the more demanding it is in terms of having good services. So, all in all, the message that I would like to share with you is domestic investment is extremely important. In my view, it is even more important than foreign. It is not about subsidies. It is about long-term commitment. Thank you.